If this council voted to shut the cameras off, there would be no further citations, leading to no further prosecutions, leading to no possibility of appeal that would have the court indicate that they were unconstitutional, therefore giving this council the opportunity to go back. At the moment this council shuts the red light cameras off, it's over. There's no hope for an appeal because there won't be any more prosecutions of those red light tickets for someone to file an appeal on. That goes to my argument of if the board wants to CYA, I was in the military for 8.5 years, if the board wants to CYA, the safe bet is to shut them off. Because if we get a ruling finding them unconstitutional, I'm going to find a really good civil attorney and file a class action lawsuit and try to get back every single person's money who's ever paid a fine at the tune of $485 a piece, $1.3 million every 6 months. That's going to be a big check. I don't know who's going to write it. You've indicated the city is paying money. I hope that's true. I don't know who's going to write the check. I suspect that the people at Redflex will quickly close up shop, file for bankruptcy, and disappear to the Bahamas so that they're not held on the hook for the money, and they'll leave someone else holding the bag. But if the council shuts it off, there's no hope that it could be appealed because it ends the second you shut it off. And although it may cost the city money, and you may have to negotiate with Redflex, I suspect Redflex, they know that the end is coming. Redflex, I'm sure, would be willing to negotiate to shut these cameras off, and they're going to take pennies on the dollar to do it because the light is at the end of the tunnel for them. They're already the two largest, not geographically large, but population large, the two largest counties in Southern California, they're done. Los Angeles and Orange County. You're here. So Redflex has seen the light. They're just riding this thing out to get the last little bit of money they can. I'm sure that if a representative from the council would contact Redflex and say, listen, these things are going offline, we want out of this, let's sit down and talk, I'm sure they're going to negotiate something that's very affordable to get rid of these things because they're going to go away one way or another. The question is, who's going to get the credit? Who's going to get to be the hero for getting rid of these things? Don't think the Tea Party isn't putting pressure on the Sheriff's Department. We're also putting pressure on the Sheriff's Department to Sheriff Hoops, encouraging him to refuse to provide personnel to prosecute these things. So I'm working on it in the courts. We're here before you. The Tea Party as a whole has already signed a petition, and it's at least on its way. I'm not sure where it is exactly.
Right here.
It's right here. We have it here. It's here apparently tonight.
Except this whole briefcase.
We've signed petitions that are going to Sheriff Hoops, requesting that Sheriff Hoops issue an order to the captain that he have his people here in Victorville just refuse to participate. They have the right to do that. So if Sheriff Hoops gives the order, Sheriff Hoops spoke, if anybody's interested, he spoke at a Tea Party meeting. He tended to indicate, I won't put words in his mouth, he tended to indicate he was against these things. I think you were there that night. He didn't come right out and say I'm against them, but he certainly said words to that effect. So we're hoping that Sheriff Hoops does his part, also as an oath taker in this community, also as somebody who took an oath to support and defend the Constitution for the citizens, that he does his part and issue an order down to the captain that I'm sure he will follow and order his personnel to stop in their taking part of these prosecutions. So we're working on it from all ends. Just the question is whose name is going to be on the headline as being the hero that got rid of this. Will it be you? Will it be Sheriff Hughes? Will it be me in an appellate court case? I don't know.
Okay, Mr. Wood, we're going on 35 minutes here, so if I might, I'd like to move on. I know the Redflex attorney is here, wishes to address the council before we move on in the agenda. So.
If I could, there was one other issue that's very brief that was brought up, that the council may be considering going in the other direction and putting in radar speed cameras. It was asked to me on a note. I saw that look. I never heard that. Well, that's a good thing. See?
That was Governor Schwarzenegger that was proposing. You realize it's over our governor, so.
I think everybody appreciates the fact that you're not on board. So. Thank you.
All right, thank you. this is an equal opportunity, and we do want to provide the opportunity for Redflex to respond. I don't know where that gentleman is. Okay, you come forward. Please, proper decorum, Mr. Jensen.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak here tonight. I'm here on behalf of Redflex. I'm here mainly just to provide some purely legal background and insight into the red light cameras, mainly the constitutional concerns. First, as a threshold matter, to address some questions that were asked previously, no court has found the cameras per se unconstitutional in California. The Collette case out of Orange County, which seems to be coming up a lot tonight, was confined to the facts of that case. The court did find that the particular officer and procedures that were followed in that case did not establish the prerequisites set by the evidence code for admissibility of the evidence. It did not make any overall generalized statements as to the constitutionality of the program or the evidence involved therein. To address the legal issues specifically, with respect to hearsay, it's very well established in California and elsewhere that machine-generated evidence such as photographs and videos are not hearsay and do not need a hearsay exception for admissibility. The reasoning behind that is that there's no human actually inputting any information, and so there's no truth to be tested there by cross-examining anybody. Courts always say, it would be fruitless to cross-examine a machine, so they always find that purely machine-generated evidence is outside the ambit of the hearsay rule. Even if there was hearsay, courts have found that even in red light camera cases, that the public records exception does suffice for admissibility of these photographs. As was stated earlier, the public records exception or official records exception only applies to public employees. However, case law has developed in such a way to allow private companies who perform duties under a contract with a public entity to fall under that exception. There's a case out of the Orange County Appellate Court, the same court that handed down Collette, that has found such. In addition, the Confrontation Clause issue is the same for similar reasons as been found in favor of the red light cameras and the evidence collected thereby. The Confrontation Clause only applies to testimonial evidence. Testimonial evidence is evidence supplied by a witness that goes to the elements of an offense. Courts have found, however, that machine-generated evidence is not testimony provided by a witness. For the same reasons with respect to hearsay, they find it would be fruitless to cross-examine a machine. On that ground, they've found that there's simply no place in the Confrontation Clause for evidence that is solely generated by a machine. Also, with respect to the Confrontation Clause, there's the declaration that is submitted with the evidence package in these cases. Courts have also found that is not covered by the Confrontation Clause. That is not evidence that's supplied that goes to the substantive elements of the offense. Rather, it is meant to authenticate the evidence. On that ground, courts have found that the Confrontation Clause does not apply because it does not go to the actual, it does not provide testimony against the offender. With that, I'd like to open up to any questions you may have regarding the legal aspects of the
Do you have in your documents here, what is would be the cost if legally the council could cease the contract, cut the contract now, but if we did that, there's obviously a penalty associated with that. What number do you have down there, or do you have?
I don't have a number. I'm here to speak purely on the legal aspects, particularly the Confrontation Clause and the constitutional aspects. My colleague, Bob Hickman, will be speaking later, should be able to provide you with that.
Oh, do you have somebody else? Okay.
Okay, so any questions on the legal? Okay, yeah, we could have.
Council members, thank you for the opportunity to come here and answer any questions you may have. Here we go, how's that? Okay. Thanks for the opportunity to come and answer any questions you may have.
You asked a question about what it would cost for buying out the contract and so forth. Could you give me your question again, just so I make sure I answer it correctly?
The question basically, I don't know what this council will do tonight or any time in the near future. I'm just asking a question at the moment. Can we legally terminate the contract tonight? If that, I mean, is that a legal option? I'm not asking. Please, let me ask. I can't think. Well, I'm a teacher. I need to have television focus on things. My question is, if we were to, can we, number one, in your opinion, could we legally terminate the contract tonight? I mean, it's just a yes or no question. I'm sure it's probably pretty easy to answer. But the second question, probably one more germane to the decision making of the body, is if the answer were yes, what is the cost of severing the contract tonight as I speak? Do you have those numbers in your
A
head?
fair question on it. First of all, the contract that you have with Redflex does not allow you at this time to arbitrarily terminate the contract. Initially, there was a clause in there that allowed the city to terminate the contract within the first year after installing the equipment. That deadline passed in March of 2009. When we renewed the contract, it was pointed out that it was past that time and that it was now a moot point. It would not be considered. If the council were to decide that they did not want to continue with the contract, it would be the same as when we talked about removing the 6 approaches. It would have to be a matter that is arbitrary. We sit down, negotiate rather, and it would be a matter of not knowing at this time, or even then what the price would be until after we finish our